Good afternoon or good evening. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. The first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Selectman Baker, would you like to lead us?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All members of the Board of Selectmen are here and present. First up, we're going to do approval of a couple of meeting minutes. First is December 13th. It's included in your packet. Are there any corrections?
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes, special meeting minutes of December 13, 2022 presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? December 15th.
Make a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of December 15, 2022 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Sarah?
I'd like to make sure that my report is included.
I think it's included in what went out, but for the record, we need to
It's okay.
incorporate. Is it? Did it make it in? Okay.
It was added the next day, so I don't know if it was in the minutes or I don't know how you want me to amend it so it includes it, but I know it wasn't originally included. I had made sure it was included the next day.
So what we should do is we should accept the minutes with your report as the attachment and have Peg file it accordingly.
Okay. So do you want to amend your motion or no?
Well, I have it, but I can
Oh,
amend it. I'll make a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of December 15, 2022. With the additional hard copy of the report that was given by Sarah Muster, Board of Selectmen member, that day.
second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion or additional correction? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted as amended. December 30th.
Move to approve the special meeting minutes from December 30th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion or corrections? All in favor? Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Public participation. This is one of two.
This one?
No, we did 3.
Oh, I missed it. That's fast.
So public participation, we're on to one of 2 opportunities for the general public to address the Board of Selectmen. First, I'll ask anybody in the room if they'd like to address the board. If so, please state your name and address, and then I will provide the same opportunity to anybody who's joined us online. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Broadbrook. Before you guys get into discussing the light and property maintenance code ordinance, I have a couple of comments on that because it's okay. So number 1, Article 3.1B, inspections. The PMO may inspect any premises in response to a received complaint or for any premises which is believed to be blighted or which no complaint has been received. My take, I'm not asking for discussion. My take on this, number 1, is to give this individual more power than anybody else in the town of East Windsor. That says that they can go on a property if they so choose. That is unacceptable. The police can't do it. Nobody can do it. A property is a person's rights. And nobody can go on a property without being invited unless they have just cause in advance. That is not the case here, so that is completely unacceptable. I have a stack of highlights. I'm not going to go into any detail, but I will tell you, I can find a minimum of 16 violations on my property according to the definitions and so-called rules.
Would you like to let us know where they are?
What's your address again?
You wanna know? I'd be happy to give you every single one of them if that's what you want, but I don't think you want that. Okay, I'll give you one. I have a slate roof. You stand in my front yard and a piece of slate slides off that roof, you could be beheaded. My suggestion is stay off of my property. It is not a health and safety issue if you're not there. If you are there, I want to know why you're there. You have no business being there and you get injured. You deal with the insurance company. I don't care. Okay, I would say anybody who comes onto my property uninvited or without a predefined just cause, such as a police officer doing something, the mailman, UPS, blah, 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 you name it, okay? If you don't have a purpose, something could happen to you by coming onto my property that's unintended, and that's unacceptable. I can defend my right to my property in any reasonable fashion. I will never allow anyone on my property uninvited, period, okay? If this passes, it's law. Once it's law, you can't change it. So I will tell you that in my opinion, I think the five of you should throw this away. This is your opportunity. If this goes to town meeting, there's gonna be one huge uproar. I will make sure. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say about it this time.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? Anybody in the room? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
In Cherry Depot Street. All I want to say is please use discretion when you go over this. Thank you.
Any other comments from people in the room? Is there anyone online who would like to address the members of the board? If so, please unmute yourself and identify yourself by name and address. I'll ask again if there's anybody online who would like to address the members of the board. Okay, seeing none. We will move on to communications. And I got messed up because I started looking at the ordinance. So I have a couple of pieces that all relate to the same thing. So there was a press release that was put out here somewhere from Senators Murphy and Blumenthal and Larson announcing the congressionally directed spending awards for towns and cities in the state of Connecticut and in the first congressional district. Town of East Windsor is the recipient of 3 congressionally directed spending awards totaling $4.7 million. $2.75 million of that is earmarked for the renovation and construction of renovation and addition at the Scout Hall facility. $1.2 million is earmarked for a clean water project in the School Hill neighborhood to extend city water into that neighborhood. And $750,000 is for project improvements at the Connecticut Trolley Museum. There were 99 congressionally directed spending awards in the state of Connecticut. East Windsor received 3 of them, which is a pretty impressive lift, I would say. So that's that. If anybody would like a copy of the 8-page press release, I have it. So we're on to 7A1 and 7A2. Jim Richards has expressed his interest in stepping off of the Economic Development Commission and the Arts and Culture Commission. He submitted his letters of resignation. May I have a motion?
Move to accept the resignation of James Richards from the Economic Development Commission with regret.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I would just like to thank him for serving in this capacity.
I would echo those comments. He was there for quite a long time, so it's too bad that he decided to move on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7A2.
Move to accept the resignation of James Richards from the Arts and Culture Committee with regret.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
I
Opposed? So carried. Discussion of blight ordinance. So here's the deal. We have a town meeting scheduled.
skipped reappointment.
I did skip reappointments, right? 7B1, Mike Mislick is a regular member of the Ethics Commission.
We'll move to reappoint Mike Mislick to the to the Ethics Commission as a regular member for a term expiring January 24th, 2027.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? So carried. Now, blight ordinance. It is 7:11. We have a town meeting that is required by charter to start at 7:30. We can dive into this now and either hope to finish up or carry it over after the town meeting, or we can take some stuff out of order on the agenda to fill some time until 7:30, then come back to it. What do you guys want to do? Take some things out of order? Yep. Okay, then let's just go right on to the next thing, 8B. May I have a motion to take up agenda item 8D, 8E, and 9A?
We'll move to take up agenda items 8C, 8E, and 9A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I explained the whole history on how we even started looking at this parcel last meeting, and I think the meeting before. Mr. Neal has expressed an interest in leasing the property from the town. It abuts his property, at least on one side, and he would use it for pasture land and riding areas for the horses that they keep and board. In your packet is the back and forth between myself and the North Central Land Trust about conveyance of the property and whether or not there's any type of a conservation easement on the property. The town does not believe that there is. The North Central Land Trust has a different opinion. So we can either not do anything at all with the property. We can put the property out for a lease. We can pursue the process of conveying it in some fashion to the North Central Land Trust. So what do you guys want to do?
Well, I guess I'll start off. I went out to see the property today, as I had expressed the desire to last time we were there. Because I had no idea what it even looked like. And I was picturing a flat piece of property with mature woods and maybe even some timber value and whatnot. And it's as it's described for the most part by the Northern Connecticut Land Trust, a great functioning wetland. It's definitely being used as a wildlife corridor. And all the neighboring agricultural fields drain into it. I can't imagine that it was ever farmed, although everybody says it was, and it would have been, I don't even know how you do it nowadays, but it's pretty wet. Except for a couple areas, one being where Mr. O'Neill wants to keep horses. So I guess, after reading all the land trust stuff, I'm not sure I want to go that route quite yet and lock it up and not have options. And I'm open to lease opportunities, I guess. We have to figure out those details.
Just for clarity's sake, if we were to lease it, we would have to publicly bid it.
Yep.
And accept bid, and we'd have to take the.
Just like we did with all the rest of it.
Exactly.
Yep. My question though was, could we can lease part of it, right? We don't have to lease the whole thing.
Sure.
Right, so. And there's all kinds of details with that lease, and stipulations that I'd be interested in seeing in there, but just as the general, what to do right now, I think that's where I stand.
Other thoughts?
I mean, I'm open to discussing a lease now rather than just giving the property away for good and not having an option. I do have some questions about how, if it would just be part of it or the whole property. And I was just curious, the part that he's interested in, would he need to, can he access it directly from his property, or would he be crossing in part of another property, the property that he's not interested in?
It abuts your property.
Oh, okay.
Accessible.
Okay, then yeah, I would be open to discussing a lease as well.
Charlie?
Yeah, I share the same comments. The only thing that does kind of, you know, give me hesitation is if we send out for bid and the person who originally came to us for this is outbid, and then he ends up with something next door to him that now he truly doesn't want, some type of farming of some sort. You know, are we opening a can of worms? That's my only hesitation in all of this.
So I have a couple of thoughts on that. The first one that comes to my mind is accessibility of the land. One of the reasons that the previous leaseholder wasn't able to farm it is because he wasn't able to access the land without incurring the other report. So it's unlikely that somebody else would be able to circumnavigate that in a more efficacious way than Mr. Neal. Solve that whole problem.
And does that lead to controversy as to opening up to bid, but there's only one person who has access? That's,
If somebody wants to lease it just to make sure that nothing else happens to it, they could do that too, even if they can't access the back portion of it. Or maybe the property owner in Enfield though,
right.
which I suppose reintroduces your concern about what else might happen there.
Right.
And I guess on that point, I would suggest, after looking at the condition of the land now and, you know, the fact that you'd have a hard time walking it at all, I would restrict any farming. You know, I would not want to see it cut and stumped and farmed. I think that would be environmentally not the way we want to go.
And the Department of Agriculture already opined that they did not want
Right.
to get involved in farming of that parcel.
Yeah.
How mature would you say the trees are?
You know, so the land trust, they looked at it from, obviously, from the right of way on Melrose. And that section is, you know, there's a row of trees that somebody planted there, and then there's invasives. Like they say, there's Phragmites and multiflora rose and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the property, it's all native, it's red maple, red dogwood, you know, native wetland plants, basically, is what I saw.
Okay.
And so, that's what, you know, that's what I was really happy to see that, like, in that area, if you look at the Melrose State Park, it's all invasives. Like from one end of it to the other. So I was actually surprised to see that there was any native flora at all down in that area with all the disturbance it's had over the last couple 100 years. So I definitely not want to see it, you know, everything ripped out of it and put back into farming, because the next time it gets neglected, it might come back differently, you know?
Other thoughts or concerns?
Well, I'm still concerned whether or not there's an easement. Is there one from Enfield side? Is there one from East Windsor side? If there's not, if it says I don't think so, don't cut it for me.
There's an easement that, well, what do you mean an easement? There's access.
She means conservation.
Is it a conservation easement?
No, it was theoretically open space, which I would just assume that it is. And this is an allowed use, it's passive recreation. So,
Even with the conservation and passive recreation.
yeah, so, I mean, it's an allowable use anyway. And for me, long term, if we're gonna keep it, I think that we ought to solidify the fact that it is open space and our intention is to protect it as is, as a wildlife corridor and, you know, whatever. People can hunt there, people can do all kinds of different things there.
I'm not sure you could.
You can bull hunt there.
Oh, yeah.
You could legally bull hunt there.
So what I'm hearing is you guys are okay with doing a RFP for, or a bid notice for a lease.
What's the liability to us if people are in there mowing and there's open space that belongs to the town?
We don't allow hunting on town property, I don't believe. Joe?
Wow.
Joe? Well, hunting would be allowable, but it becomes a liability concern through permit. We would have to provide written notice that.
And I disagree with that, but, you know, I think we should consult deep. Because other towns do.
Still have to get the property owner's consent to hunt on anybody.
Exactly, and just because somebody gives you consent, doesn't, if you get hurt on it, it's your problem.
That's right.
Yeah, we haven't provided consent on town property.
Right, but, and which brings me, as I was driving home from this situation and thinking about the various other pieces of property that we have that are town property that could be hunted. You know, all we need is a policy, right?
Probably with some heavy input from Kermit.
Sure. Yeah. But we first, before we assume that Kerma has any play here, we should look at what the Connecticut state law for hunting is.
So what do you want to do?
I want to continue on the path we're on. But that, you know, that's a whole other discussion that I think we could have.
This is gonna be one of those things you get tagged with, you know. School meeting, it's been so long, I can't remember what it is.
I don't know. What you're talking about.
He does.
So. You guys want me to work with planning to come up with a lease document or a bid request? Whatever. Okay, then we'll have a draft of that either on the 19th or the 2nd. All right, Mr. Sauerhofer. Talk about the asset policy. Sure. So first of all, we've all seen a draft of it. We've all had time to ruminate on it. Why don't you tell us how we did with the first posting that went out and where we stand with things now?
Like I reported last meeting, we sold just about everything, but the air conditioning units, which probably a bad time either to try to sell a conditioning unit. So we kept them in storage and we'll put them back out in the spring with some other stuff. We have accumulated a couple of vehicles that I'd like to get rid of before spring. But after you, if you approve the policy the way we're doing it, then I'll get you some prices and some market value on those two vehicles, and it worked out very well.
Did you sell some vehicles this time around?
We did. Five old police cruisers.
And my snake, I was laid on.
And a loader and a snake and a bunch of old motors that used to go on the Sanders when they had motors on the back. I think a couple of them ran off water. That's how old they were. So, but surprisingly enough, everything was marketable, which I was surprised because some of it was just going to go into the big green hopper. So we did very well. That we probably made a little over $68,000 selling all the stuff. Loader was a big hit, I mean, that was 40 of the 60, but it was more economical for the town rather than taking them to the auction. And I mean, we took cars to the auction and we were lucky to get $500 to $800 for them.
$100? $100?
Yes. Because, you're taking them to wholesalers who want to buy them cheap and, we were just getting them, looking to unload them. So we definitely, I think is the way to go for us as a town.
So the pilot was a success.
Pilot was a success.
Now we need to codify the policy so that we can continue to do this down the road. Any questions or comments on the policy as drafted?
That look good.
Yeah, and I would like to emphasize that whichever department, obviously, we tend to do a lot over there at Public Works, but that it all comes before you guys in review, price, everything. And it's non-negotiable at first, and then we could always come back with something if someone 2 weeks from then, and that is pretty much in the policy anyways, because it works out well, because it's either take it or wait. And most people just said, well, I don't want to wait, so.
Edits, thoughts, concerns?
I don't think it needs any edits. I think it's good.
Yep, I really liked it.
Yeah, it doesn't leave any wiggle room. It's just black and white, really.
And you guys make the decision ultimately, which is perfect.
So can I have a motion to accept the policy as drafted?
I'll move to accept the town of East Windsor movable asset disposal policy as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? You're not lagging today, Al.
Saving it.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
That's it.
Well,
Want me to talk quick about what's next?
no, I think we're gonna take a break. I'm sorry, I was trying to get you out of here, but I don't think I have time.
I have nothing else to do but go home and watch Housewives or something.
At this time, I'd like to have a motion to recess the Board of Selectmen meeting so we can convene a town meeting at 7:30. So moved.
Second.
All in favor of recess, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in recess at 7:26. We'll reconvene after the town meeting. Very good. All right, it's 7:30. I'm going to call the town meeting to order. Our first item of business is the election of a moderator. Are there nominations?
Second it, Sarah Munkin, 25 Maple Avenue.
Motion has been made that Jason Bowser serve as moderator. It's been seconded. Are there any other nominations? Are there any? Yes, sir.
I move the nominations be closed.
Motion has been made to close nominations. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to close nominations. Any discussion? All in favor of closing nominations, please say aye. Opposed? Nominations are closed. All in favor of Jason Bowser serving as moderator, please say aye. Opposed? So carried. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public notice?
I'd like to make a motion to forego the reading of the town meeting notice.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on foregoing the reading of the notice? Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest that you at least read the notice date for the public, so if they want to look it up online, they can. Or look it up in the paper, they can.
Sure. The public notice was noticed for today, January 5th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. It ran in the Journal Inquirer on Saturday, December 31st. With the call of the notice included. Question is on waiving the reading of the notice. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Statement of vote. Okay. At any town meeting other than a regular or a special town meeting, or a special town election, or at any meeting of any fire, sewer, or school district, or any other municipal subdivision of any town incorporated by any special act, any person who is an elector of such town may vote, and any citizen of the United States over the age of 18 years or more, who jointly or severally is liable to the town, district, or subdivision for taxes assessed against him on an assessment of not less than $1,000 on the last completed grand list of such town, district, or subdivision, or who would be so liable if not entitled to an exemption under Connecticut General Statutes subdivision 17, 19, 22, 23, 25, or 26 of section 12-81 may vote unless restricted by any provision of any special act relating to such town, district, or subdivision. So. May I have whoever has resolution number 1, please introduce the resolution.
Item number 1, to consider and act upon a resolution that the reports of the first selectman, town finance director, treasurer, and other town officers be accepted as printed, errors and omissions accepted. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Alan Baker, 340 Rye Street, seconded by Charlie Nordell. I'm sorry, I don't know the address.
7 Grandview Terrace.
Thank you. If there's anybody online who's intending on voting in the town meeting, when I call the vote, kindly unmute yourself and record your vote. So the motion has been made and seconded to accept the resolution. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Who has resolution number 2?
Item number 2, to consider and vote on the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-9B. That the hours for referendum held by the town of East Windsor in the calendar year 2023 be held from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion on the resolution? Yes, ma'am.
Did I hear him say for referendum only?
Yes.
Should that be for both regular elections and referendum?
No, the statute speaks specifically to referenda. Elections are prescribed by a different statute and they are 6 to 8 anyway.
Okay.
Any other discussions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. Resolution number 3.
Sarah Muska, 25 Maple Avenue, item number 3, to consider and act upon a resolution authorizing and empowering the first selectman and town finance director / treasurer to borrow from time to time on behalf of and in the name of the town for the purpose of meeting current expenses until the tax monies are available, and to issue notes for same, and to determine the amount of such notes, and to execute, sell, and deliver the same. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Patricia Sherry, Depot Street.
Thank you, madam. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Resolution number 4.
Tom Lancer, 27 Laurel Circle. Item 4, to consider and act upon a resolution authorizing the selectmen as provided in chapter 240, part 2A of the general statutes of the state of Connecticut, revision of 1959 and as amended, to enter into any and all agreements with the commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Transportation relative to the expenditure of any unexpended balance of highway funds allotment due to the town on July 1st, 2022, and to enter into an agreement with said commissioner concerning the expenditure of said allotment. I move the foregoing resolution to be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? Yes, sir.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. I believe it was July 1st, 2023.
We checked that. But,
It's an illegal notice.
oh. This was prepared before we reissued it. Is that, sir, would you offer that as a friendly amendment to the resolution?
I'd be happy to do that.
Is there a second to amending the resolution?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on the amendments to the resolution? Change that to 20. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the amended resolution, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So okay. Item number 5.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. Excuse me. To repeal and replace ordinance 15-4, ordinance concerning local property tax relief for certain homeowners age 65 or over or permanently and totally disabled, repeals ordinance 10-6 with revised ordinance concerning local property tax relief for certain homeowners age 65 or over or permanently and totally disabled. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second, Sarah Muska, 25 Maple Avenue.
Thank you, madam. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Item number 6.
Lee Sherry, Dupont Street. Discuss and consider the conveyance of town-owned property on the south side of Old Ellington Road at the intersections of Mahoney Road to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's for Stiles Bridge project. I move this foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Item number 7.
Hank Gazda, 9 South Road. Item number 7. To discuss and consider the conveyance of properties located at 13 South Road, 10 South Road, 9 South Road, 12 South Road, 8 South Road, 4 South Road, both parcels, 6 South Road, 11 South Road, and 13 Phelps Road to the individuals who own the homes. I move the foregoing resolutions be adopted.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Name and address, madam?
Kathy Elliott, 10 South Road, East Windsor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody that, took and the discussions over the last couple of years and to make this finally come to fruition. So I encourage everybody to please vote in the affirmative for this. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You have on there 13 Phelps Road.
Hmm?
I believe it probably should be 13 South Road. The ones on Phelps are 26 through 29, I believe, or 31.
That might be a Scribner's error. It might be 31. Where am I? Just give me 1 second. 5, 6, yep, there actually is no 15 Phelps Road. So could, sir, would you like to offer an amendment to correct that to list it as 31 South Road?
So I offer an amendment to correct that to 31 South Road.
What's your name?
Joe Mellencamp, South Road.
Phelps Road.
I'm sorry, no, 31 Phelps Road, right? Is there a second to the amendment?
1 second. Kathy Elliott, 10 South Road, East Windsor.
On the amendment, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment is adopted. On the amended resolution, any further discussion? Thank you for that catch. Yes, ma'am.
When is this effective? When will this take place?
As soon as we can get the paperwork in order. This is the last step other than signing legal documents. So this is, the town meeting is taking the step to officially convey the property. Then it's just filling out the deeds and we're done.
Is there an estimate due date? I mean, an estimate date of that?
As soon as I get the paperwork, could be next week. I mean,
Okay,
this is imminent.
all right, thank you.
Further discussion on the amended resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution number 8.
There's Spencer, 60 Ready Reg. Item number 8, to discuss and vote forward to town meeting resolution to authorize the first selectman to submit a grant application on behalf of the town for the Community Investment Fund in support of installation of water line at Park Hill. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second, Alan Baker, Rice Street.
Motion has been made by Heather Spencer, seconded by Alan Baker. Any discussion on the resolution?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. Legal notice did not mention referendum.
What?
I just heard move to referendum. Part of the resolution.
Heather, what I have here, and let me know if I have the correct verbiage, but I have to discuss and to vote to discuss and vote to forward the resolution to authorize the first selectman to submit a grant application on behalf of the town.
The wording is different. You know,
Discuss and vote on a resolution of maintenance of first selecting to submit grant application to the community investment fund of the town.
So this is what I have from the Journal Inquirer on the 31st, or 30th, whatever the date was.
31st.
To discuss and vote on the resolution, authorize the first selectman to submit a grant application to the Community Investment Fund on behalf of the town for the installation of a water line at Park Hill.
Correct.
That's the resolution.
Right. Not what was read. So.
I don't see anything here about a referendum.
I don't think I said that.
No, maybe it was just the beginning word.
Heather, would you please repeat the resolution?
I would love. To discuss and vote to forward to town meeting resolution to authorize the first selectman to submit a grant application on behalf of the town to the Community Investment Fund in support of installation of water line at Park Hill. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
No, you can't forward it to town meeting. We're in a town meeting. It's not in the legal notice. That's what the issue is. Sorry. Got my wording wrong because it was all what I heard.
As a friendly amendment, I'd like to strike to discuss and vote to forward to the town meeting resolution. So the resolution would say to authorize the first selectman to submit a grant application on behalf of the town for the Community Investment Fund and support the installation of water line. Is there a motion to make that amendment? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Opposed? On the amended resolution? Don't like doing that. On the amended resolution, is there any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that you put something in there so it doesn't come back and say town meeting once it tells when we actually were sitting at a town meeting.
No, that's what the amendment did. Right? Well, I'm sorry, I honestly did not hear you clearly. I believe what you said is you didn't want to have it sent back to a town meeting a second time.
Right.
That's what the amendment is.
Remember, it takes it away from the town meeting form, so when somebody reads it, they're gonna say, by law, it's supposed to go to a town meeting.
The motion is at the town meeting. The town meeting is just voting not to send it back to a town meeting, but to approve the authorized resolution.
All right, gotcha.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any further business to come before the town meeting?
Move we adjourn adjourn the town meeting at 7:47 PM.
Second.
It's not debatable. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:47 PM.
Uh,
7:49, I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen back to order. Our next item of business is agenda item 9A, a discussion of a draft update to the town's purchasing policy and bid procedures. Mr. Sauerhoff, how are you this evening? I'm wonderful. So good to see you. Thank you for having me. So this is a policy that hasn't been updated in almost a decade, and it's time to take a look at it. To reflect kind of what our current practices are and make sure that they're in line with what the policy direction of the town thinks that it should be. So you have a red line copy. The red line represents the changes that we're putting forward. Do you have a copy of this? No. Okay.
Well, that's okay.
All right. So to start with, under the purpose, one of the things that we would like to add is the inclusion of Sourcewell. Sourcewell is another source of getting pre-qualified bids that are available to local governments, so that we would be able to use as a substitute for this policy, either the CROG bid list, the state bid list, or Sourcewell. Any points you want to add on that?
With having the three opportunities is always way they work against each other, so somehow you always get a cheaper price. Sourcewell seems to be the cheapest lately, even better than what the state negotiates.
Is Sourcewell a private entity or is it part of a state organization?
It's part of a conglomerate of states. It's like a group of states.
Oh, it's a regional.
Yeah, it's it's like a regional, I think it might even be nationwide. I'm not quite sure. I mean, we've been using it. to compare, and we found that the prices are cheaper. We bought those in 2015, we bought those Kenworths off Sourcewell because they were cheaper than what the state was actually advertising for the 10-wheelers. They don't buy a lot of 10-wheelers, that's one of the reasons, but so. It definitely is a better value. That's actually where we bought the loader off the Sourcewell bid versus the state bid, because it was almost $30,000 cheaper. So,
And it's pre-qualified government bids.
yeah,
Next, the policy states that purchases over $20,000 must follow the sealed bid procedure. $20,000 is a number from 2014. So we should have a conversation about whether or not that is still the appropriate threshold. If it is, so be it. If not, what is the appropriate threshold to require sealed bids? So thoughts on that?
Do you know what other communities are doing? What,
I have not looked.
I meant to do that, but I didn't have the chance.
Do you know? Okay.
no, I no.
We
It's a
can
good
we can
question.
flag that to
Very
look
good
at for 2 weeks.
I'm not really sure what the standard practices and
With the cost
going
of
rate,
products going up.
Right.
Housing, you'll be bidding everything.
yeah.
Okay, that's a good note.
Mm.
I'm just going over the red line stuff. So if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns about the underlying policy, we can do that too, whoever's at the red lines. 3.3, the request for proposals for professional services. So there are certain services that we need to have available on an on-call basis. That doesn't fall under the typical job duties of a DPW maintainer. It also doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to send some of these jobs out to bid. For example, when we're talking about emergency road repairs. Last summer, I think, part of Melrose Road collapsed. You don't really want to sit around and wait for the bid to come back on that. That's something that kind of requires somebody to respond in an on-call emergency circumstance, but should also be pre-qualified to make sure that we understand who we're working with. So that's an example of the type of things that we would do. The services are laid out. It's electrical, plumbing, HVAC repair, emergency road repair, tree removal, and general contracting, which can include painting, carpentry, window cleaning and repair, stuff like that. It's those types of services that we typically use on an on-call basis based on a bid that's submitted. So this is just codifying what that practice is. Trying to think if there are any other highlights in there. I want to know. Oh, there is a requirement that I put in there that for instances where those on-call services are used and a bid isn't in the public interest to do, usually for timeliness, that a report needs to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen on a monthly basis outlining what the job was, what the cost was, why the project wasn't something that went out to bid, stuff like that.
A good example of that would be we're decide to pave a road and we mill up the road, and now all of a sudden we discover 5 or 6 catch basins need to be replaced or repaired. Well, that's out of the scope of what we would normally hire somebody on an emergency basis to do. So then we would pull the prices off the contract that they send us, and then come to you and say, we need to do this.
Probably.
Or, right, Tromley Road, yeah.
Did we do that on Depot Street too?
With the, you're talking about with
With
the,
the pond?
no,
We
that
put
was
that
that
up.
circumstance. That was, we had already had a bid out for work, for similar work from that company.
Oh,
And they were able to insert us into their work schedule just by, good fortune. That was certainly an emergency circumstance for us, but we were able to get that company in within like a week and a half because we hit them in between jobs. Whereas if that had gone out to bid, that road would have been closed to some degree for months.
And it was somewhat of a specialty job. And that had been the 3rd job that company's done for us in town. They did the dam, They did the culvert going across Main Street.
They did the actual dam, not the retaining wall, right?
So how do we approve vendors? Like, what is this? Do we have a policy for that?
We do put them out to bid every 2 or 3 years. And then based on the results, there's a provision that allows us to provide some benefit to local businesses versus the lowest bidder per se. I think it's a 10% consideration. But it is something that's bid every couple of years.
And do we maintain for each discipline, electricians, plumbers, whatever, do we maintain more than one approved vendor at a time?
Yeah, so in that case, there typically are at least 2. And what they would do is if company A isn't available for the project, company A is the lowest approved bidder. If they're not available for the project, rather than waiting for them to be approved because of the emergency nature of it, we'll go to company B, so that we can get the project done. It's all about expedition here.
It gives us fixed prices to, for the maintenance stuff, like the service of this, the HVAC system. Has to be done once a year. So at least we know what we're spending, so then it's a very good budget tool for us. I know how much I'm gonna spend, so if there's a room, we're gonna move a wall and do electrical. And it's going to be worked into my regular budget. I know how much money I'm going to spend. Because I know how much electricity now, how much my electrician is gonna spend there, my carpenter there, my drywall guy there, and my painter. So, it helps. It saves a lot of time. And we know what we're spending.
And those vendors are reevaluated every 3 years.
Every 3 years, we put it back out to bid. We have been since 2014, I think, or yeah.
And once this policy is updated, we'll reissue the bids under the new policy. So everybody that's currently in there will have an opportunity to bid again under the new rules.
And the caveat for the local vendor is not only that if they're 10%, but they have to match the labor rate of the lowest bidder. So, for instance, we had somebody last round from Stratford be the cheapest plumber. But by the time you figured his on-call rate, his travel time to and from Portal. So, but
He was the cheapest guy, but he also did portal to portal in the contract from Stratford, which is a nice move. But
Nice try.
yeah. The local plumber didn't like it too much, but he didn't have any choice if he wanted to work.
So, any other questions or comments on this? We're not going to vote on this tonight because Sarah raised a good point that we need to get some clarification on. Folks can marinate on it for the next couple of weeks, and if there are other questions, comments, or concerns, we'll discuss it again on the 19th. But if there's any other takeaways or homework from this, let us know so we can have the information for you for the 19th.
I will request, if we do change the policy, that you request us to put it back out. Null and void the proposals we have and put it back out to follow the new guidelines.
Say that again?
So currently we have contracts.
Yep.
That are up probably by July or August of this year. If this goes into effect, I want to
Immediately done over.
redo them over, that way there we follow the current policy.
I guess I'm a little concerned about the last point, the Board of Selectmen may by a majority vote waive this policy for any reason. Like under what circumstances? I just think that leaves it too vague depending on who the board is at the time. I mean.
Well, a good example would be the retaining wall.
Right.
We waived the policy, we waived the whole policy and brought in the contractor. We knew who could handle the job and talked to you all about it and got a price. And with working with the engineer, we knew what the price was gonna be close to the dam engineer. And that would be the only reason why it would be waived. In an instance like that, South Water Street was the same way, the culvert going underneath there, because of all the utilities and everything, we had to reline that pipe. It was the same example as we had to do it, or we were risking breaking a 24-inch water main that supplied Bradley Airport.
No, I totally understand the emergency circumstances. I'm just a little concerned about,
I would change the verbiage to justifiable reasons. You gotta give.
Well,
justify.
I'll give you this. This gives us, that gives us a little bit of wiggle room for this policy. The next board of selectmen might choose to not even use a policy and just abandon this and.
I was gonna say, that's
a new thing.
yeah,
The next board could just throw it away.
Right.
true, okay.
So, any other feedback on this? Okay, then we'll work on this over the next couple of weeks and at least provide Sarah's answers to what other towns are using for a bid threshold. We'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have fun with the housewives. Okay, we'll return now to the regular course of order and take up agenda item 8C. We've exhausted our out of order. We'll get back to the regular order. Discussion of the blight ordinance.
Procrastination.
I wanted to put this in the drawer. You guys didn't want to.
No, I was with you.
Hey, I need to
Okay,
get across the room.
you guys want to come up?
Do you want to go there?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, I thought we weren't doing this part.
So in your packet, there is a clean copy and a red line copy. Red line copy represents only the most recent changes. So any changes that have been previously agreed to are incorporated. But the changes that were last discussed or that were incorporated at the behest of the town attorney who reviewed it are indicated in red line. So what do you guys want to talk about?
For myself, I want to start right off by getting rid of H completely. And number two, Mr. Anderson's comments, I agree with wholeheartedly.
Okay, so let's start off and let's go it this way. Does anybody have any issues up to in 2.2H?
Yeah, I think I did.
We'll work our way in sequence.
Okay, to B.
2.2B?
Yeah, I don't think shutters should be included. If someone's shutters are missing, that's, I mean, no one in this day and age has shutters for the purpose of what shutters were designed for back 100, 200 years ago. If their shutters are missing, I don't think that should be in there. And awnings. If your awning is missing, I don't, that's the same as a shutter in my.
I think it says if it's falling off, like, then it could be dangerous.
Says collapsing or deteriorating exterior walls. Shutters, roofs, stairs, porches, handrails, railings. Basement hatchways, chimneys, roofs, awnings, or floors. I guess if that was. Yeah, I could see where that's pertinent on this page. If a business had a broken awning on their entranceway, that would be a hazard. So, yeah, I guess that can stop.
Shutters? Anybody want to fight for shutters?
Shutters.
All right, so we'll strike shutters and keep awnings. Anything else in 2B or moving up to 2H? Let's see.
I don't know, I'm on the next page.
Okay, 2H. Now, make your case.
I think I've made my case ad nauseum the last couple of meetings, but I just think this is. So I'll kind of review. I'm like, if you put yourself in the situation of let's say a younger couple gets together, gets their first house, has some kids. They're in over their heads, making the mortgage, but they're not getting the lawn mowed all the time, and nor is it a priority for them. I don't think that the cranky neighbor ought to have the government power to give them a lot of crap about it.
You have just specifically described my own life.
I mean, I agree with Alan on that point. I mean, the government getting involved in what's happening on your own property, if it's not risking the health or safety of someone, I just think that's kind of infringing.
So, and it was an interesting thing, in further rumination on this over the last week or so. I happened by, Gardner Street, which has had a couple sites that have had a couple things going on. It's mowed now. Sites are mowed. I wouldn't say they look much better. So, there's, like I said before, there's other issues that could be to deal with a blighted property that have nothing to do with grass. And I just remind you of my other point of, I think that this grassy monoculture thing that we've had going for the last 100 years or so is probably not the best way to do things. And I don't think that we should codify any law that continues that philosophy. So H for me is out 100%.
You have a counterpoint?
Well, first of all, I wasn't prepared to sit up here today. I think you did this on purpose,
I did no such thing.
but I'll, yeah, I think H is worth negotiating.
Okay.
I thought we did that before.
We talked about it and I tried to negotiate it,
Well,
but
I
I
thought-
philosophically just want to say, and I said this, I think, a number of times, so I think we're both repeating ourselves. Philosophically, I just absolutely 100% am against giving the government the power to let somebody, the government, as it's written now, come in and say, you ought to mow your lawn. I just can't, there's no way I can stomach that. There's no negotiation on it as far as I'm concerned, period.
well, if that's. Do you want me to
Yeah,
continue?
absolutely. Yeah, it's an open dialogue. So, this is something that you guys are going to try and administer. So make your case.
So. Everybody puts, invest money into their property, whether it's residential or whether it's commercial. Respectively, everybody is investing their hard-earned money in their property. For them to have a place where they can say, listen, my neighbor's not taking care of the lawn. I want to sell my home. Is there anything you can do? Not always. There's something we can do. We can ask them, we can send them a letter to say, you need to cut your lawn. We can even knock on a door. Sometimes we can give them help because they need help. We can find them help. I've been involved with this before. And it is a good tool. Elderly people, younger people, single mom. I've seen it. We've worked with it. It's not always a bad thing.
When we talked about this last time, and we mentioned those, that you had that argument, and then I asked you, if this was written, if it was as written, if this was in place, would there be any discretion or wiggle room? And you told me no. There wouldn't be.
No,
This
that
is
not what I said. So you said you thought like 4 weeks or however it's written was wrong. You wanted more time. We came up with that. You thought the 12 inches was wrong. And then you said, I'll give you the 12 inches. How about we just give me more time?
Yeah, and as I've thought about it and talked to a number of people, constituents. I found 0 people that are for this.
It's, again. It's complaint based, it's not, we're not police officers here. I mean, I don't want anybody,
That's not true, really. To bring up the clause that Mr. Anderson brought up, and I agree with. The way it's written, you could just go, you could be driving by and see it and be like, I don't like that, and the way this is written, you could start proceedings on this person. So, I mean, we could deal with that separately, and that is a separate discussion, but as it's written right now, you could decide, I don't like the way that looks over there, and take action on somebody because of their grass. That I certainly want to avoid. Not that it's you, not you personally, the position, the town position.
no, I understand that.
What if there was a threshold that had to be triggered by having, 2 or more resident complaints? Something like that.
Well, I don't think that setting it up so you get the neighbors to gang up on somebody in the neighborhood is any better of a scenario. The people that are having an issue keeping their lawn mowed, or maybe they just don't even care about mowing their lawn, and it is their right, their personal property, right, to have some discretion on what happens on that property. Where I come from, that's where I start. It is my sanctuary, I paid for it, I'll do what I want. Except for some existing laws that are out there. What I want to do is not add another existing law.
Is it comments here?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know we've hashed the grass thing many times, and I have to believe that, Ken's right, we did initially increase the time period. Because, like I've explained to you, Alan, many times before, you can only get your grass in New England to grow 12 inches high twice in a season, in a year, in a growing season. But you can only get it to do that twice. It just won't do it more than that.
If you have the monoculture type grass seed, that is the typical American lawn, I would agree with that. If you try to do anything different, you could easily get well over that. And that's where I reconsidered that whole idea. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I think that there's other ways to take care of actual blight, and I don't think that grass is actual blight.
Yeah. And to go on, I agree with you that, if this is the difference between this getting forwarded, eliminating this grass thing, I'm all for eliminating, because I think there are much bigger issues. And, I'd like to reemphasize the fact that this is not something we're trying to do to police people. It's for safety purposes. There are certain times when people do have to get onto your property. And there are properties in this town that are a serious safety issue for both first responders, police, fire, and I could point out several of them. And we've had incidents as well in town, and we need some course of action that we can take to address those issues before someone seriously gets hurt or dies. And that's why I am strongly pushing this ordinance to get passed in some form or fashion. And I agree with grass has very little to do with that issue. And if someone decided, well, now this section of lawn of mine, I want it to grow into woods again, they should be allowed to do that. That's their choice, and they should be able to do that. And I agree with you on that. And I understand Ken's perspective that, it's kind of an opening step as to what might be going on someone's property. But if it means this going forward or not, I would gladly eliminate the whole grass thing to see that happen.
And I agree that we need something. I do agree that we need something, and I like the enforcement part of this. I think is fair and graduated and has off ramps, and I like all that. But I think we need to just whittle down a little bit some of the things that government now has a say on your property.
I totally agree. I don't, I'm the last one for government overreach. There's plenty of it already. And but the last thing I want to do is see someone get hurt or killed, because they're responding to a fire or a medical call. And, they fall through a porch or an entire porch falls on them, or something of that nature.
Okay, anybody want to fight for H?
Well, I have a problem with and I'll use the house on Wells Road that I've been up on for years, that was owned by a bank, that did nothing for years. And there was garbage outside, the grass was up. That to me is blight, and that to me is dangerous, because it's a vacant house to begin with, the grass grew up way up tall. That to me is blight. 12 inches for somebody that wants to have a sanctuary for bees. I think bees came out certain times of the year, you want the grass, for the bees and all of that. I get that. But I would like something in there for those properties that are not being maintained by a resident. That if things are falling apart and trash is out there buried within the grass that's overgrown, that something can be done.
What if we were to amend H instead of getting rid of it or just keeping it as it is? What if we were to amend it to say that unoccupied dwellings or unoccupied structures with unoccupied. What's the word for both residences and businesses? There's a word for that. It's not dwellings, it's
Vacant.
no. I'm saying if they are vacant properties. Then this would apply, meaning like a bank who has a abandoned house in their custody would have to maintain it, whereas that doesn't infringe on the resident property owner's rights to every man is his castle, but it does prevent a blighted circumstance from presenting itself. What about that?
No, when we had discussed that before, and I agree, if it was legal, if you could pinpoint, if it's legal to pinpoint exactly that and only that, then I'm good with that.
Can we do that? Is there a way to do that? Do you not agree with that? How about that?
Well, I don't think he agrees. It's okay.
No, it's not that I don't agree. It's just that what I think what's happening is here is we're starting to restructure this entire thing, which now just takes it all and tips it upside down. So just by that one statement. So if somebody has 6 broken down cars in their yard and they're all overgrown with grass, is that blight?
Yes.
Is it blight?
The cars are blight. And you have, by this, you have, and I think in our current zoning regulations, you already have the power to get rid of unregistered vehicles that are not stored properly. I think that we don't need 2 different ways of doing that, right? But if you just want to say.
But he doesn't have, the building official doesn't have the power to enforce zoning regulations.
Only, okay, so who enforces, so our zoning enforcement officer could enforce that blight issue.
Right.
Which is something we also talked about before.
So historically speaking, the previous incumbent as the building official was actually given more money in his pay in order to be the blight enforcement officer and never did it. So
Aware of it.
the issue is we need to make sure that whoever is the boots on the ground has the tools available to them to perform the function.
Sure, and I know.
And Ken, as now the incumbent in that position, doesn't have the tools.
Sure, and we do need to get somewhere, like I've said. But we also, it's our responsibility also to. If we're gonna try to do this right now, I don't think it would pass, right? So I'm trying to get it to somewhere where I think it would pass. So we're dealing with a different constituency than other towns in that I think the majority of people, and by experience, previous times that this has come up, this has just gone down because people don't want it, right? So I'm trying to help get something together that is passable. So that's where I'm coming from.
What do you think makes it passable?
I think as little overreach as possible, right?
Or
So
as precise as possible.
and precise, exactly. And we'll have, and it's always hard to do this because you know, we have our input, we have a little bit of public input. We always get a lot of public input when it comes down to the actual vote, where it'd be nice to have that input in the build-up phase. That said,
We could do a public hearing on it.
and we probably should.
Right, there's nothing wrong with noticing a public hearing on a specific topic like we do on the budget. Post it all over the place and invite people to come and give their opinions on it. That's not committal in any way on our part. That's,
And yeah, and let's talk it out and we'll have a vote later, right? No vote. And I think that would be instructive. And I think that would give us all a little bit more something to go on. But for me, it's just. I think that H is just out there. It doesn't, like I said before, all these other things gives you all the other tools, like what you said. You've got, and we have this, right? In fact, and I should have taken a picture of it. There's 2 properties that I drove by this week that have exactly what you talked about. And it's been like that for years and years and years. And what's happened recently, because of somebody must have said something to the people, the stuff got piled and the lawn got mowed. It still looks like it could use some help. It still looks blighted, right? The lawn's mowed, but the property still looks very much blighted. The problem is the stuff, not necessarily the grass. And I would say in these types of properties, they don't mow because you can't mow because there's too much stuff. And once you move the stuff, then things will start to clean up a little bit.
You're probably right.
And so it's the stuff that I think is blight. I think that most people think is blight, and it is
Listen,
easy to do.
I understand what you're saying about the grass. I do. And I'm not against foregoing it if like what the gentleman down there said, it's it only grows to 12 inches twice a year. That's what's possible. Then you came up with something that said, well, if you find a different grass seed, then maybe it'll grow 24 inches. I don't know. You know, we can find problems with all of this over and over and over, and this thing can keep going on for 5 years. Okay, until it doesn't. So you're gonna do what you want to do, no matter what it is. I'm not here to try and change anybody's mind. I'm not. I'm trying to help a situation here that's pretty obvious. And I do that through all of you. I'm not trying to make something up here.
Nope, I don't think anybody is saying that.
And alls I go by is what I've seen in the past. I've said that to you before.
Mhm.
I respect what you're saying. I really do. I respect what all of you are saying, and I think you're right. But how do we get to just that thing? How do we, and then still be able to enforce safety? Life safety,
I agree.
with a little bit of respect in there too.
For me, I think that there's no life safety with the grass thing. There's just not.
Well,
and maybe we're spending too much time on it.
there you are. I mean, because I can bring firemen in here and I can bring police in here and I.
With just get next thing that I don't like.
So now, so.
okay,
Yeah, on a
So-
dry day, that 12 inches of grass doesn't mean anything to firemen, but on a wet rainy day, that grass can be very slippery.
I actually asked, when we talked about the fire issue as a safety issue, I asked. I'm not gonna throw him under the bus. I asked a fire professional, he said, no, no. That was his response.
okay, so I'm not
That's
hearing
fine.
anybody who wants to fight for any of the 5 of us who wants to fight for the 2H. So I think what I am hearing is that everybody does agree that we need to have the appropriate tools to address the problem. If, to Charlie's point, I'm not gonna let the perfect be the enemy of the good, so let's just scratch H and move on to see what we can get through.
Love it.
Anybody else? All right. So, what's next? Moving from I on down.
Okay.
I just made a comment about the slate shingle, but then I did find something that kind of pertains to that, so that's. Okay, so going into, I think we're safe to going into Article 3.
I have something ahead of that.
Okay,
Number 3, please forgive me if we've already addressed this. It's been a long time since we've talked about this, but a condition attracting illegal activity as documented in police department records. How does that necessarily pertain to blight?
Not like an attractive nuisance, a broken fence or that kind of a thing. The mill building as an example.
Oh, so not like, so say you have a commercial property that is maybe abandoned and there's
Kids
not a
hanging
proper
out.
fence maintained and people can get in there.
Yeah, the time at a vacancy.
So should it indicate that it's public property or something like that? I
well, it's
mean-
not.
It's not public property.
Okay, well, I don't know, to me, that's very vague. How do you know that it's necessarily attracting illegal activity? Police reports, I guess. Right?
So, I mean, I guess we're assuming that since it's police department records, and I don't know, maybe there's a different way to say it, but. I mean, if the police know about it and they come to us and say, we got an issue here.
I was just gonna say that as complaints reported by
Yeah.
police
I
department.
think it could indicate that.
Referred to the blight or the property
Right.
maintenance officer by the police department.
Yeah, some sort of direction as to why.
Or
you're
fire
doing it.
department,
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
in place for fire department.
Well, the next one is. Condition fire hazard determined by the fire marshal or documented in fire department records.
So on 3, do we want to have that say,
Okay, so maybe the explanation of 3 is below.
Oh, in 5, yeah,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't even, it doesn't even say 5, it just says A, right? Like this whole.
in our red line, it says 5.
Oh,
So any conditions,
so maybe this needs to be removed.
and maybe actually just you maybe could put the 3 of those things into one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
maybe we'll just get away with the 3rd one.
with just the third one, any conditions regardless.
Or a combination there, which is creating substantial and unreasonable interference with use and enjoyment of other properties within the surrounding areas documented by multiple discrete.
Hmm.
Just
Police reports and cancellation of insurance.
So that was cover, like the nuisance up and down the railroad tracks or the illegal bike activities or the Charbonneau property when there was issues there.
So,
Yeah.
so maybe if you took out of 3 illegal activity and 4 fire hazard and stuck them somehow into 5, you could get rid of 3 and
Okay.
4 and just have a 3.
And just pay all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
The cancellation of insurance on proximate properties, how do we know if somebody cancels their insurance?
We really know. I mean, it's.
Well, it would be in a complaint like that. My insurance company won't renew me because my neighbors.
Oh, I see, that does make sense, I got it. Okay,
So before we leave that section, I know Charlie was unhappy with where we left H and I thought Marie had a good point with the vacant property thing. And I had agreed to this before. If there was a way that you could make that specifically and only for vacant property, non-owner occupied vacant property, then I'd be okay with keeping that in there, the 12 inches in 30 days kind of thing. But I absolutely want to make sure.
you're bringing it back from the dead.
I want to make, I just want
Can
to,
you write him again on that? I don't think we can do that, but.
I don't think we can either, but if we could, that, I want to make sure that Charlie and Marie are both happy as well. So I would be okay with that, but only that, and it has to be very specific. It's just that. I don't want any residential people touched by it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mortgage company.
Article 3, Charlie.
We can fight more later.
All right, so this gets into,
Maybe that'll fall under this new one once they put it all in there.
Well, don't make me take that all out of there.
Which, leave that all in there, and that other stuff could fall underneath that.
She's talking about 500 too.
Oh, grass and that. Well, let's just see if it's there. Let's see if it's legal to pinpoint basically bank-owned properties. Right. Or abandon somebody, you know, scooted on a mortgage. I mean, that happened a lot in like 2008, right? I mean. 2009, but then we're putting ourselves on the hook for a big landscaping bill.
No,
So just as an interesting correlation, we're getting smoked in the relocation act
Right.
financially, so.
Right. That's what I'm saying, like, say a property is abandoned and even the bank doesn't own it. And it's now up for forfeiture to the town due to delinquent taxes. Are we?
So we would go in there, we would, if we ended up with the property, we would go neaten it up and put it out there for bid, right?
But that's what I'm saying, are we putting ourselves on?
I mean, we're already in, I mean. That situation already exists. If we end up with a piece of property, we gotta do something to it and get rid of it, you know? Okay.
Talking about it, we should.
All right, so getting into Article 3 and what's, you know, one of our the audience said about inspection. And it's seeming to be a little bit of overreach. I have to agree that it's something with the wording there has to be done.
Because I think it's extremely concerning that someone can just go on somebody's property, like Mr. Anderson had said and pointed that out. I think that's not okay.
So when we become. Go ahead.
That's right. No.
When we become aware of a circumstance,
Mhm.
how, if there isn't an inspection provision. And maybe the wording can be maintained or cleaned up a bit, but if there isn't an inspection provision. How do we ever do anything about any circumstance of which we're aware?
Well, aren't you aware because you might have received a complaint? You're just aware because you drove by it?
you can, well, if a house is falling down, you might notice. Right. If
So.
I know.
you drive without a complaint, you can drive by a property.
It's just concerning to me because if someone is not in a good financial place and in like a scenario that might have been brought up earlier, that you're struggling and you're paying your bills and you're feeding your family and you're putting oil in your tank and something is falling off your house, but you can't fix it at the moment. I think that's, you know, they may be aware that there's an issue there, but they just can't financially do it right now. I don't know that the government should be coming in and giving them another headache. Like, I can see it from both sides. When is it appropriate and when is it not? And just, if it's, you know, like that comes to, you know, coming on somebody's property without permission, and if something falls off, well, why were you there? I mean, I don't know. I can see it from both angles.
Well, I think. I understand what you're saying, Sarah, but I think in our notice of violations and citations and. You know, like Alan pointed out earlier, the remedies and everything else are very accommodating to help people. And again, we're not doing this to pick on people. This is not something we're gonna do to just target people and it's to get rid of the serious safety concerns in town. And there are some.
Right, but you say we're not picking on, what if a neighbor doesn't like another neighbor and they're picking on and I don't know, it just doesn't kind of.
What is? You seem like you might, go ahead.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, you know, honestly, it's so. There's a level of liability that comes with this, and I'm sure you're all aware of that, right? So, as a building official, all right, we'll take this PMO right out of it for now. As a building official, once I'm made aware of something, so the fire marshal pulls me into a property to do an inspection, I see that it's dangerous, I gotta make a call right then and there. Otherwise, if I walk away from it, Now the liability comes back to me.
I understand.
And that's based on
Okay.
state statute, right?
That is based on, yeah, it is, okay, but also the town takes a hit on that as well. So I'm licensed by the state, but I work for the town of East Windsor.
So it's our negligence too, if he turns the.
Of course.
So,
And all I'm trying to say is, there's part of this where there is a level of liability here. You know, I don't think as deep as a building official, however, it's there. And it's there for the town. Once I become aware, or you become aware, we're kind of liable to do something, find out if we can even assist. You know, before we do anything to enforce, can we assist? I don't know.
But right now, the health department gets a complaint, they can come onto your property, you can't stop them, correct?
The health
The
department,
health department can come on your property. Chief gets a complaint, they can come onto your property. Whether you want them on your property or not, I know that only because it came to my house, because it was duck flying in and out of dog pen, and it was an endangered species, so they came to investigate, and things flew away, and then it flew back in. I don't have any control over that, but somebody complained nonetheless. But I don't have a problem.
and that's all based on state statute, right? So it's already like, our hands are already tied. We're not making a rule for that. We're just following the state's laws. So here, though, we're making another rule, giving more power, right? So I don't know, would it make sense, like, if there's not a complaint and a town official says to, or the PMO, I guess, you know, sees something, maybe the PMO makes a report and a request to the Board of Selectmen to, you know, is this something we should follow up on?
You don't want to turn this political.
no,
Okay, all right.
We
Yeah,
can't-
I didn't think about political.
we can't do that, you know, and once again, it's. You know, I can't go. Whoever's sitting in this seat. And sees something. Shouldn't have to ask permission to do every single thing.
Absolutely right.
And so that's what that's why we're all sitting here together. You know, we're trying to get around that. But. It's. And there's a level of trust here too, but it's.
I think we all agree we're happy to have you. We think you're a professional. I appreciate your experience here. But I'm thinking 10 years down the road, you know.
I'm still gonna be here, by the way.
Yes. I'm gonna be. So, you know, like, this is when it's in, you know, and we can't control the future.
I get it.
You know?
Oh, I get it.
And I think out of all the things, this would be the biggest tripping point to get this passed.
What's that?
Having the PMO just be able to go on anybody's property whenever they feel like it.
Well, and so with that thought in mind, there's a word in that first sentence that Paul pointed out earlier that. I think could be massaged a bit to make it more palatable. Instead of saying that the PMO may inspect any premises in response to a received complaint, I'd like to see that be a bona fide complaint, which would then, that stops the neighbor versus neighbor stuff. Because it gives.
Well, that was gonna be my other point, is every complaint has to be a signed complaint.
The initial response to any complaint. All right, number one is. Most likely driving by to see. Is there something? Maybe go talk to the person who made the complaint, not go on the property. Right, that would be the initial response, and then if there is something. Then a letter would be written, we wouldn't go on to the property.
Yeah, and I get that. I think that's pretty clear. I think what the big problem is the second part of that sentence.
Right.
Which is to be believed to be blighted by whom, number one, for which no complaint has been received. That's the problem. That's giving PMO can go anywhere, whenever.
Yeah, but in that case, that. My assumption is that clause is in there. As an entry point for the building official to find a public safety concern. So, for example, if there is broken windows at the top of a staircase. That doesn't, there's questions about access to the building or whatever, that becomes something that's Ken's concern.
Yeah, then maybe we should specify the conditions under which the PMO could just kind of walk on a property without somebody's complaint.
Did I articulate that right? Is that really what that would do? It's to give you an entry, like
So basically what it is that there's several things for that. And number one, it's we'll go back to what we were talking about before. There's commercial property, right? And I know right on Newberry, there's an abandoned piece of commercial property.
I drove by that too, yeah.
That's just been sitting there, right? So I don't think that should have to be complaint based. But if you see an issue like that where people can get through the fence and into the building, and nobody cares, that could create a lot of problems. Then somebody can get hurt. I think it's something to that effect. I go down to the street, I see an abandoned house and there's broken windows.
But you're not gonna hop out of your car and go on that.
No,
property,
of
right?
course
You're
not.
gonna Send a letter.
Yeah, exactly. It's,
Well, this is saying, and so maybe we should clarify that because this says under the heading B inspections. Yeah, I can go and inspect where no complaint has been received. So,
well, I guess if there's life safety and it seems like somebody's having a rough time, then maybe that's what that's talking about. But for blight, this regular blight,
But it does say if a complaint or a complaint hasn't made, so. It's dual, like the piece that he said on, that road there that. Sitting there in the fenced in area that
Mhm.
nobody's been there for years. If people are in there squatting, because they squatted in the old movie theater, so if they're in there squatting. I'm necessarily not going to give it any thought because I'm used to seeing it. But if I saw somebody coming in and out of that parcel on a regular basis, then it might bring some light. But if people are sneaking in after dark, you wouldn't know that unless you.
yeah, so, and to me, that's trespassing and you call the cops. Right?
Sure.
It's not blight.
no,
Right, that situation, that's, and
but
you know.
it's an abandoned building.
The building where that all happened was blighted property and still is today. But that behavior was trespassing and was dealt with by the police and that person ended up in jail.
But
Okay, but now how do you remedy it? You need this ordinance to remedy that.
And nobody, I think everybody agrees, we need a blight ordinance, but
then at that point, a letter would be sent to the owner
Letter would be something.
enforcing.
And I agree with that turn of events, right? But this paragraph just says, I can just go in. It says. The inspections, we'll skip the first half of it because we all agree on that. And then. For any premises which is believed to be blighted for which no complaint has been received. So it's just, it doesn't say who believes it's.
What if we were to add to that a phrase that Ken introduced, which is for which no complaint has been received, but where life safety circumstances may exist?
And I think that's getting somewhere.
I was going through to see if we defined that.
Yeah, we have to come to something here.
Yeah, no, I think it needs to be tightened up, so it's not just carte blanche.
You're right. So, I mean,
And we don't have to do it all tonight, we can do it the next
I
time
don't
too.
care what verbiage you
No, it's okay.
It's gonna be how that verbiage is interpreted.
Well, and
And
exactly,
it's gonna be interpreted differently by anyone that reads it.
exactly,
right,
exactly.
so we need it to be tightened down, so that's what good contract law does, right? There's no interpretation except for the one we intend.
Well, we're gonna, I mean, this is gonna get,
The blight ordinance, we've been working on the blight ordinance. I mean,
4 years that I'm aware of.
exactly, longer than I've been involved, and I was personally involved in the blight ordinance in 2011. And she was involved in it long before then. It's hard to do right. It's hard to do, period. And we haven't got it right yet. So we're just trying to get to something that I think is passable and then actually is enforceable as well. Because what we got last time was passable, but not enforceable. It was a step in the right direction at least. We had nothing before.
we kind of have nothing now, but.
Well, I think what we got was, it's broken. But this is, I don't think will pass. So I don't know, we just need to come up with, and we don't have to fix that tonight, but I think we need to come up with some way to make that not just carte blanche. Because, and as the gentleman said, that's literally giving the police powers as far as like how much power they have. They could just literally go anywhere. It's more than zoning enforcement, more than wetlands enforcement, more than the police department has. It's more than anybody has by the way that's worded.
And what if, I don't know if this would helps or not, but what if you change the order of this too? Like, as far as procedure goes, what if C came before B? And I understand there's emergency situations, but, you know, in which you sampled with squatters and that sort of circumstance. But again, you call the cops and you get remedied that way. But what if the warning letter was sent out first? And I mean, most blight situations you can see from the street, standing on double yellow
I
light.
would assume that you would need to see it, right?
Yeah.
Right, but, right, so what if C was placed before B? And the warning letter was sent, and if no, action remedied,
Or contact made, then they have the right to go on your.
So, yeah, I like that where
On the property.
you have to,
It's a street,
let's have a
well, most times,
flag on the play and then we talk about it.
most times when there's a complaint. Whoever's making a complaint will invite you onto their property,
Right, so you can see it.
so you can see what they're seeing. Sometimes it's something, sometimes it's not.
So it's almost like there's two paths.
That's where you could do the same exact scenario, though. You could be invited on their property, but then again, you send the letter, you're not going on their property to do it or to see anything for yourself. So couldn't C come before B, and then you send a warning letter and say, hey, I've noticed from such and such a property that this is taking place on your property. What can we do to remedy this?
Do you see that as workable, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, we can take some, and we gotta talk
Do
to,
it anyway.
we gotta talk to Brian about this, but there's some language. In the building code that. What it says. About myself being able to walk on somebody's property. I wonder if we can use some of that in this. Legally,
Well,
where it explains.
Has a, guy. That sees something as he's driving by and he actually has stickers that he sticks. On their vehicles, if they're not registered, to stick something if he sees something to notify. So and so you're in violation.
That's walking on the property.
Yeah,
that's,
they do it all the time in Windsor Locks.
Well, Windsor Locks apparently didn't have an issue with it when they went to a town meeting.
Yeah,
we're paying attention. And it was too late. No wonder why they're so. agnostic.
Oh, no. Bridge wars resumed.
Meet you after.
Halfway on the bridge.
I like Charlie's suggestion about,
Yeah,
being able to get eyes on without having to.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same.
Yeah.
See the lawn go down.
good point.
Yep.
What's next? Anything after? Well. I guess new C, which is the old B.
I don't have a problem with the process after.
I don't even.
Okay, that wasn't so bad. So. The outstanding issues are figuring out if we can impose something on non-occupied building.
In relation to grass, otherwise just skip it. And then, like, not to redash, whatever.
We're gonna look at combining 3, 4, and 5 in some way so that all makes some sense. Not that it doesn't now, but the combination's gotta make some sense. And then we're gonna invert 3.1 B and C. Those are the takeaways, right?
Make them shutters out of 2-2B.
Yes, yes, yes. But leave on it. Shutters out, awnings in. Okay,
I do think a public hearing though at some point would be a good idea,
Yeah.
definitely, because.
I think that's how we did the wetlands fee ordinance, and I think it was helpful in working out the kinks before we actually presented something for a vote.
so optimistically, is this something that we think would be ready for a public hearing February 2nd?
Well, I think we need to see how the things are reworded.
If we get it revised. And give everybody a chance to read. The revised version.
See, so we see exits the 19th and then. Yeah, it's possible.
February, well, actually, we're already gonna have a public hearing on the 2nd anyway. That's my budget, so. Barring anything that people don't like in the next version of this, that seems like an opportune time to try and tee them both up. And maybe we'll get more people who will find on the budget too.
That'd be good.
I mean, no matter what you do, people are gonna nitpick because it's gonna affect, I mean, I'm looking at 2.2 E. I know we have both pickup twice a year. I have a big yard. You wanna see something in my yard, you gotta go to my backyard, and you have no business being back there. But I don't have a problem putting next to my shed, that I used to have back there, anything that was going to go to the dump in April and then from April till October. And I know there's a place here, not too far, where they have some wooded area where the residents put what needs to go to the bulk pickup every 6 months. Way in back of the property in the tree lines. And then when the bulk comes, they clean it up as I clean up my yard and go. I'm just concerned that that might bring some animosity between neighbors if you don't like the fact that somebody's got something on the side of their property. Because what some people think is blight, I don't, and what I think somebody has a right to do in their property, other people say, well, if I can see it and I don't like the 600 tires that are back there, then I should be able to complain about it. Well, you're paying property taxes, you know, your yards, that stuff anywhere you want.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Okay,
Okay.
progress?
I think it's progress.
Thank you both, though. I know you have been working on it for a while, so thank you.
And yeah, I just want to make it clear. We need to get something passed, and in this town, this has been difficult, so we're not trying to take anything personal.
But I have confidence we'll get it done.
Not personal.
You think we like it?
Looks like you.
You'll make it easier.
On our job.
Thank you guys very much. All right. 9B. Thank you.
Did we get a copy of that?
No, I want to show you what it
I'm
is.
saying I don't have it.
Oh, Route. 824 referral on Prospect Hill.
824 and Drew on Prospect Hill.
The right away.
Yes.
I just, I might need an assist on this to explain.
Okay.
Where is this?
Right. Okay, so, a while back, a resident in the Prospect Hill neighborhood, reached out with, an interest in acquiring property next to his house that was represented as being town-owned. It's actually a town road that never went in. And so this sparked a conversation between Ruth and I where, she started to do an assessment of all town-owned properties, from the very, very smallest to the very, very largest, to do an overview of those properties that might be appropriate for us to convey in some way. But relative to the initial inquiry, before we can move forward with actually addressing the constituents issue, we need to do an 824 referral to abandon the right of way. And so that's what this topic is about, is trying to address this particular issue, which has led us to a conversation we're going to be having in the next couple of meetings about the larger issue. Is that a good enough introduction? Did I cover myself? All right. Actually, I think you guys at one point were all copied on an email from the constituent who raised the issue, but we're trying to figure out a solution. This road goes to, it abuts Lincoln Tech. It's never going to be a road. I can show you some of the themes too.
There's 2 or 3 of them in that area. That's just.
Yes, there's 2 of them. There's 3 of them because there's one off of Cricket Road, right?
So that leads me, like, if it's,
Which one?
there's more than one to this subdivision, right?
Yes,
One more like this?
yes, there's one, yeah, it's right here.
Because in order to do this, we need to amend the subdivision, because it's a road.
Was that those? I mean, they're grass, all of them. I'm familiar with this neighborhood pretty good. Were they ever accepted as town roads?
No, they're just rights of way, but the subdivision maps.
Oh.
With roads.
Okay, yeah.
So, we have to modify those, so we'd be going in, to make a modification to the subdivision.
Okay.
Well, in which, are we talking about?
I don't think you're on the right parcel.
I know the person you're looking at. Are we, which one? So you, as far as the subdivision goes, where are you talking about?
So. The subdivision gave a whole, when this was
Oh,
planned, and so this was part of it,
I see.
so we have to change the maps to the subdivision.
okay.
So what we're trying to do is resolve the original constituents' concern or interest. And typically once we were to take care of the procedural stuff that Ruth talked about, we would offer up the property to one of the abutters or both. And then if not, we could keep it for, well, we can keep it. So this is how we address that, is to follow the course that Ruth outlined and give the 824 referral concerning that right.
So the 824 referral is to the Planning and Zoning Commission to change the subdivision map. That's step 1.
Would you? Yeah,
Right,
and
yeah.
the conveyance piece would be separate,
Or they could include that in their report back.
okay.
They might say, don't do it, but at least we're taking the steps to address the concern.
Yeah, we've asked, and we have actually, J.R. Russo did a lot line reconfiguration.
Any questions or comments? Is it clear what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, how we got here?
We want to do them for all the 3 of them at once,
I
right?
would think we don't want to amend the subdivision.
Yeah.
Where's the other 2?
Well, so go back, I'm gonna turn the aerial off, so we can see it all.
64, there's one.
There's one here,
Where are you?
in between 53 and 55.
Okay, but
There's one here.
yeah, but that is access to that lot behind. See?
Right. Oh, right, we can't make it
You
non
can't
conforming, so we probably
Yeah.
shouldn't do it to those.
You can't.
But there is another one.
How
Here.
about the Showham Road one?
This is the Showroom Road one.
Um,
Oh, no, this is not the Showroom Road. There's this one.
That's.
Just they made them everywhere.
Yeah.
There's another one over there.
There's quite a few of them in there.
Oh, yeah.
big
Yeah.
thing.
They really wanted to leave their options open.
I can remember coming through some of them when I was a kid. We used to cut through the one at Showman Road, go to Marsh Motorcycles to get parts for our bicycles. I did. There used to be a little path there and you could just go right through the two lots and
It was uphill with broken glass.
it was actually, but.
Yeah, and the one between 40 and 42 gives access to the park.
Right, that one you can't change.
I would think that 15, 17, there'd be an interest. Get a lot of calls about that particular passway.
Mhm.
What do you mean?
15 and 17.
People, parking in there, or getting into the woods that belongs to Eversource back there. And,
So I guess we
there's a
gotta,
lot of kind of, I
yeah,
would think that's one of the two neighbors would enjoy having it.
and that doesn't create landlocked there, that I assume that other lot has frontage
I
on.
think it has frontage on 5.
Yeah.
So if you went all the way over, you get to. the Eversource.
Yeah, they have their own private road there.
So this other lot here that you've got highlighted with the two right of ways, or those are not right of ways, they're
Their frontage.
They're us, we own them. No, we don't own that property. We don't
Those are,
own those. So those are their.
that's
that's
on,
part of their property.
The trust out of Florida.
I believe that's the same company that built. The one on Newberry and Winkler.
Giorgio.
No, the where Mockingbird Lane is and everything else.
Newbury.
Jim Giorgio?
Yeah, isn't that the same company? I think it's the same. The company before
yeah.
Giorgio. Oh, is it SL? I forget who they were, but yeah. They were out of Florida, I remember.
Yeah.
Now. I don't know, so can we make a motion now? We gotta figure out which one of these we want to play with and which ones we don't, right? Swampy Hills, Swampy Acres. I think that's what it was.
There's a structure here, but that's another one. Somebody's already taken advantage of it.
Yeah, I know that.
Signs aren't always the exact.
I mean, even if it's up by 10 feet.
No, they, I know.
Between this and the wrong.
Who's it?
It's well landscaped.
I know.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so there are a number of these things that we can explore. I just feel bad that the underlying request has been asking for relief for this for a very long time. I'd like to get some progress on it.
That one. Well, I mean, it's obvious the other property wants that property. So, I mean,
Needs it.
do something about it.
Needs it, by the way, that house is sitting on that lot.
So we could we could identify the ones that make the most sense to pursue and then bring that back.
Do that for the 19th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Right.
Tax refunds.
Move to approve the tax refund totaling $2,020.75.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Oh, there he
Opposed?
goes wagging.
All right. Selectmen reports. In April of last year, our representatives in Congress, Representative Larson, Senators Murphy and Blumenthal, solicited requests from towns and cities across Connecticut for congressionally directed spending projects, direct appropriations to local governments and nonprofits, usually for capital projects. Across Connecticut, there were 99 congressionally directed spending requests submitted by our senators and approved in the recently passed federal omnibus budget bill that passed on December 23rd. East Windsor has been designated as the recipient of 3 of those congressionally directed spending awards, including the federal, which were included in the federal budget passed by Congress on the 23rd. President Biden signed it last week. The federal funds earmarked for the town of East Windsor include $2.75 million for the renovation and expansion at Scout Hall, $1.2 million for the School Hill Water Association to provide potable drinking water to that neighborhood, and $750,000 for the Connecticut Trolley Museum. Collectively, that equates to $4.7 million in federal funding being delivered directly to the town of East Windsor. The $2.75 million for the renovation and expansion of Scout Hall is what's called last-in funding, meaning that local or other funds would be needed to be available for the project before the federal funding is accessible. Federal funds would also fully reimburse the town for expenses incurred in the generation of architectural renderings and engineered plans. With no local authorization currently in place for the project, that $2.75 million is in limbo. Because it's authorized through a literal act of Congress, the federal budget no less, it is not transferable to another project. On December 17th, I was pleased to attend the town's commemoration of Wreaths Across America. I shared some thoughts that had been expressed to me by a young veteran new to East Windsor named Kyle O'Bara. I met him coincidentally the day before, and I wanted to include some of Mr. O'Bara's sentiments in my report. Both the soldiers and their families who serve sacrifice in support of our nation. During Mr. O'Bara's deployments, during which he was injured in the line of duty several times, his wife was here at home taking care of their small children effectively as a single parent. Mr. O'Bara said that when you enlist, you sign a blank check to the government that may include you paying up to and including with your life. But your family is pulled along with you during your time of service with demands placed on them that are burdensome and difficult to bear. Soldiers in today's military sign up to know that all will give some and some may give all, but their families make sacrifices in service to the nation as well. As we commemorate Wreaths Across America and lay wreaths on the gravestones in observance of the day, Mr. O'Bara wanted it to be remembered that a soldier dies twice. Once when they physically die and again when their names are no longer spoken. So he asked me to say the names out loud of those that were recognized during the wreath ceremony as their wreaths were being laid on their graves, so that their lives may continue to live on. I thought those were really poignant sentiments that he shared. Later that same evening, I attended the Torchlight Parade, which is an annual holiday event sponsored by the Broadway Fire Department and the East Windsor Community Services Department. This year's event was particularly well attended and included a visit with Santa, a carol sing, and hot cocoa at the fire department after the parade. On December 19th, I was happy to join residents of Park Hill for their holiday celebration. They had a packed hall, good food, and great company to gather and celebrate the holiday. I have misplaced the second page. The progress at Calamar, otherwise known as Watermill Landing, has been frustrating for many people for a very long time, not the least of which is our building official. I've made a number of complaints to the Department of Consumer Protection about the process, our frustrations with it, and the negative impacts on potential residents. On December 29th, DCP met with me to discuss our concerns and explain what their role can be moving forward. They've been in touch with the building official and have been on site to review the work product and make sure that all workers on the project are at least properly licensed. On December 29th, I was very pleased to attend the swearing-in ceremony for probate judge Mary Deneen, who was sworn in front of a packed house of friends and supporters. Judge Deneen comes from a long line of well-respected attorneys, and I was honored to support her as she begins this new chapter in her career. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend opening day of the legislature and the swearing in of statewide officials. Speeches from leaders in both the House and the Senate, as well as from Governor Lamont, revolved around renewal and collaboration. The sense of optimism was everywhere and a great start to the session. I would say, just as an aside, one of the things that they all harped on was the interest in bipartisan cooperation. And I had to chuckle a little bit because we have done that since taking office, to the point where I've had people in the audience who cannot tell who was a Democrat and who was a Republican. And I think that really should be highlighted as a success we've had here that they're looking to emulate in Hartford. Next week, Finance Director Amy O'Toole and I will begin the budget process. This is the first step in a long process where Amy and I meet with any department or commission submitting funding requests. By the end of the month, I'll make my budget recommendation for the town side of the government and we'll present it to you all on February 2nd, at which point we'll hold a public hearing and then begin our budget workshop shortly thereafter. Not this coming Saturday, next Saturday, the 14th, there will be an official ribbon cutting ceremony for Two Sisters Nutrition in Kingsway Plaza to welcome them to East Windsor. That ceremony will be at 9 a.m. and we wish them much success here in town. On February 18th, the Panther Plunge returns to East Windsor, which I know we're all looking forward to. All participating plungers will be freezing for a reason at 1 o'clock at East Windsor Park to benefit the East Windsor Fuel Bank. Anyone interested in plunging can register at eastwindsorrec.com. Donations can also be made online or in person. Awards will be given for the largest donation by team, largest donation by an individual, and best costumes. That's all I have.
Unfortunately, I haven't had any real scheduled meetings over the last few weeks. But there was a lot of activities that due to personal reasons, at home, I wasn't able to attend. And again, I've notified each of those areas in which I was invited to attend functions and I was unavailable. But personal things that happened, I had no control over, so I couldn't attend. So I'm hoping maybe next year, whether I'm on a board or not, I might be able to get re-invited to them, just because they would have been valuable to attend. So apologize to your commission for not being able to attend, and the same thing with Park Hill, I wasn't able to attend. That's all I got.
All right. Sir.
Based on the scheduling, I did not have any meetings over the holiday. The Economic Development Commission was canceled on Tuesday. They're desperately looking for members. So if anyone's interested, please fill out an application at the first Selectmen's office. And all my meetings are next week, so they'll be rather lengthy, the next meeting.
Charlie.
The only meeting I had was Warehouse Point Fire, and not a lot happened there because the fire marshal didn't attend. They got a call in the middle of the meeting, so we didn't really get a fire chief's report. I did get this information fact sheet that said they responded to 761 incidents last year alone. And the only other thing that was worked on was they worked more on getting their charter established and in place. That's all I have.
Selectman Baker.
You're in luck. I also have a short one.
Everything look bad.
Everything was canceled. Broadbrook Fire Department, the budget meeting was canceled, workshop, because they've already got everything all buttoned up. They're good to go. Wetlands, which would have been last night, was also canceled because of no applications. And as you know, I did visit the town property today, prep for this meeting, but other than that, I had nothing else to do. That's it.
Okay. Public participation. This is one of the public's second opportunities to address members of the board. I'll first turn to the people who are here in person and then to anyone online. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and your address.
Patricia Sherry, 119 Depot Street. I was looking at the Prospect Hill property. Would that be something that the officer, the new officer for the blight, would be doing?
No, that would be more of a land use function.
Okay. Just curious.
I think I'm answering the question you're asking.
I just wonder if the person could go online like that and look and see what people have behind their house.
Well, yeah, those photos are taken from a date and time, so they're not up to date.
No, they're not.
That one, I think most recently was 2021, and before that was 2019, so they're only updated here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
As an example, we just did a zoning enforcement for a property that looked very suspect, and once the inspection was conducted, it was found to be in compliance. So just an old picture. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
No,
You in the back, and then you, sir, in the front.
you got a call.
Okay, Wayne Sherry, Depot Street. I need to stand for this one. I gotta address all of you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I really do. Coming here all the time and watching what you do. I appreciate it. But I don't want you 5 people to decide the fate of this town as far as blight. First of all, you're about as qualified as I am to identify blight. Whoever he was, I never saw him before. You call him Ken. I think he's the new building inspector.
That's true.
What qualifies to him to identify blight? What qualifies him to even do anything besides being a building inspector? Now, a building inspector, the way I was told, was to inspect new pieces of buildings, anything added on to make sure that it was up to standards, safety. Okay, and quality, so that somebody else buys it, they'll be getting it, by the town, right? Now. That's good, but he's not doing that. If he's gonna be an zoning, I get it, he's gonna be the PPO or whatever you call him, PPG or whoever, okay? I get it, like he's gonna be the ace of this thing. How does he qualify for that? I have cars in my backyard that are plastic cars. Does he know a plastic car? Why would he pick on me if I have plastic cars that are unoperable? You didn't even go over the definitions. Inoperable, junked, as long as it's registered, what the hell does he care, or any of you? If I have it sitting on a trailer, the trailer is registered, I pay almost $20,000 worth of taxes. That's your salary, okay? You guys, not all of you, but you in particular, Jason, and that guy Ken, are subject to being sued over this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? I'm talking about close, because if you come after me, I will spend everything I have to sue you. Now, I pay your salary, I pay the lawyer that protects you, and I pay the lawyer that sues you. So how do I win?
You raised some good points that we should talk about in the public hearing process.
Okay, what about the inoperable? Incapable of being legally, why are you allowing this to be just looked over? Why we should look at that? You're not talking about it. Okay, I was on a panel, excuse me. I was on a panel before with blight. And it was so confusing, they just dissolved it. Okay, if I have a car in my backyard, it's a classic car. And you have a book right in the department there of whatever, where they collect your money. It says CPI, cars of particular interest, classics, okay? You're not gonna tell me to get my classics out of my yard. It ain't gonna happen. Not gonna happen. I'll give you the keys to my house, you can have it, all right? Now, if I cover it up, why wouldn't it be a cord of wood? Why? As long as it's not objectable. And as far as safety, he's picking that safety being the important thing here. That's not really where he's going with it. What do you care if it's a building owner in the industrial park that no one's using? Big deal. So it's got weeds growing up. Is it hurting you? Or any of you or me? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you really got to take a look at this. You know, if you want a panel, just some people in town to volunteer. I'll be the first one. But I don't see how you can define this. I really don't. Not 5 people. Even if you have an open meeting. You know, I see these open meetings with people who live here for 10 years and they're going. You know, when you guys aren't here anymore, and this guy, Ken, I guess, puts all these regulations into effect, what happens then? You can start manipulating, not you, but somebody else. You can change this around and it's just the way it's written up, the whole thing, not just, 3-1, 3-2. It's all bad. It really is. It really, really needs to have a look at it. You have something that you're saving 6 months, stick it next to your yard building way out back. I go by and say, look at that. Why does she have those old tires there? Some kid's gonna come and get hurt. First of all, it's none of the kid's business to be in the yard. They're trespassing. And the way it is now, you can't insure a house if it's got junk around it. They don't want it. If you have fuses in your house, you can't insure it. Just the way it is. You gotta get special insurance. I think the safety thing will fall into place by itself. How many people have you contacted lately and asked you to move the junk out of the yard and they did it or didn't? Nobody brought that up. What's been done lately to try and, solve the problem? All we're doing is waking somebody up, not by shaking them, but by throwing an ice water in their face with this. Excuse me. I really think you should look this over and do something a little bit different. Just massaging his thing is not going to work. Really. This is a farm town. This is stuff you see in Long Meadow, Mass. Next thing, we won't have clotheslines out in your yard.
Not really a thing about that.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah. One minute you came into your garbage.
Yeah, you nothing. You can't put your garbage cans out in the yard. They gotta be hidden. Oh, yeah.
Even the day of garbage, you have to bring your garbage can in within a certain time period or they come around and find.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, this thing can go on and on and on, exponentially. It's just, it's a farm town. See the tobacco leaves? Come on. This is not written up for a farm town. I don't know where the heck it came from, but this is, Summers doesn't even have this. Summers is a, classier town, so to speak. But, this is ridiculous. I don't know how else to say it. You guys are opening yourself up to a big can of worms. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My wife couldn't hit my knee that time, that's why I stood up.
Any other comments from anybody here in the room? I'm gonna go with this gentleman and then you. Sure. Name and address.
Tom Buckley, Kings Court, Rodwell. Curious question on the change of the hours for a referendum. Was the hours actually changed or reinforced or what?
General statutes provide that referenda need to be conducted between the hours of 12 and 8, but it has a permissive clause that allows for municipalities to extend those hours at their discretion. So what we've done for the last number of years, just because voting typically happens between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m., is we make a blanket authorization at the town meeting to extend those hours over the course of the year.
Okay, because I know in the past it's been those extended hours. Now you're actually reinforcing those hours now.
What we're doing is making sure that every time we have a referendum, we don't have to go through the exercise of establishing the hours. We're setting them once for the year and then we're done until the next annual town.
Okay, good enough.
Yes, sir.
Paul Anderson, 89 Spring Proper. One last comment on the blight ordinance, and it's only food for thought, because you guys are gonna do a lot of thinking. There's a lot of words here. And a lot to digest. And a lot to take into account if in fact it became an ordinance. Well, one other major concern in my world is. You got a PMO, that's someone's opinion. They're entitled to it. Theoretically a professional, but I don't know how you get a professional blight ordinance officer. I don't know if there is such a thing. Should be a degree in it. But there isn't, I don't believe. But then you got that one person. And they may discuss it with you, but if you don't come to an agreement, they'll go through his process. And eventually, you're allowed to request a hearing through a citation officer who's not a paid employee. And that's the other opinion. And that's the only two opinions that were involved in this entire process. So if you don't agree with this guy and you don't convince that guy, you're all done. You have no other recourse except to go to court, which is stupid because people can't afford to go to court. It's a losing deal 100% of the time. It stinks. So that is something you really have to consider. That why are we given two opinions and that's the end of the story? I cannot accept that ever. So there you go. I'm done. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Board of Selectmen here in the room?
I think that's it.
Is there anyone online who would like to address the members of the board?
We ran out of people.
Is there anyone online who would like to address the members of the board? Okay. We will have an executive session. It will include just the five of us. I don't believe any action will follow. I have a motion to go into executive session.
Move that we go into executive session.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Gentlemen?
Opposed.
Seven here. Executive session. Just thanks for listening. Good. It's 10:06. We're out of executive session. No further business come before the Board of Selectmen. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. It's non-debatable. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.